Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Monday Night Raw review. Monday Night Raw tonight was from the Pinnacle Bank Arena in Lincoln, Nebraska. Well, it's Monday again. Another edition of Monday Night Raw is in the books. And what a nauseating 3 hours this show was. This show sucks ass. Show was awful tonight, as always, with Monday Night Raw. What do we get on the show tonight? We had a women's fatal 5-way. The winner will get to face Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's Championship at Money in the Bank. And the reason why this match came about is because Rhea Ripley is not medically cleared to compete at Money in the Bank. So Rhea Ripley is injured. So we had in that women's fatal 5-way, Carmella versus Alexa Bliss versus Becky Lynch versus Liv Morgan versus Asuka. And like I said, the winner will get to face Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's Championship at Money in the Bank. We had 2 Money in the Bank qualifying matches tonight. We had Omos versus Riddle. You can already tell who won that match. We had Angelo Dawkins versus Jey Uso. We had a gauntlet match where Bobby Lashley ended up taking on 3 opponents. And what a waste this gauntlet match was, as I will get to explain it. But you know, when WWE does gauntlet matches, it means that creative is lazy and they got nothing else to put on the show. So they can't think of nothing to put else on the show because they got to fill the 3 hours. So if they can't think of nothing, let's do an old-fashioned gauntlet match. These gauntlet matches are so overdone, in my opinion. But it's an easy way for WWE Creative to not put anything else on the show because they are creatively bankrupt. So we had a pointless gauntlet match tonight. Of course, we had the Elias Concert. Elias making an appearance, which I will get to that. We had AJ Styles versus Ciampa. And in the main event, it was a Money in the Bank qualifying match. Asuka versus Becky Lynch because Becky ended up complaining to Adam Pearce, bitching to Pearce, which I will get to that. But that was Monday Night Raw tonight. Nauseating 3 hours this was. What an awful fucking show tonight. But let's jump right into the review. Monday Night Raw opened up tonight with Bianca Belair. Bianca ended up coming out and she got on the mic and she ended up welcoming the crowd to Monday Night Raw. Bianca ended up saying that she was looking forward to defending her title, her Raw Women's Championship, against Rhea Ripley at Money in the Bank. So Bianca ended up saying that Rhea Ripley will not be medically cleared in time to compete for the title at Money in the Bank. So Bianca ended up saying that she'll be ready and waiting when Rhea Ripley ends up returning. So Bianca ended up saying that she needs a new challenger for Money in the Bank. So she ended up listing 5 names. She listed Alexa Bliss, Liv Morgan, Carmella, Asuka, and Becky Lynch. So she ended up saying that they'll compete in a fatal 5-way match to determine who will challenge her. So Bianca then got interrupted by Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch ended up coming out. She got on the mic. She ended up saying that she is the only contender for the Raw Women's Championship. She ended up pointing out that she has yet to get a one-on-one rematch following WrestleMania. Becky ended up also saying that she had the title match won at Hell in a Cell, but Bianca ended up stealing her victory. Becky ended up going on to say that it'll all make it that much sweeter when she takes back her title. So then Becky got interrupted by Asuka. Asuka ended up coming out, and Asuka ended up wanting to know if Becky is crying. And she ended up calling Becky a big-time baby. You know, Asuka comes out there like, you know, just mimicking, you know, Becky Lynch saying, oh, is big-time baby crying again? So Becky ended up saying that Asuka needs to spend less time making Simpsons memes and focus on winning some matches. So then Liv Morgan ended up coming out. Liv Morgan got on the mic. She ended up saying that she's always ready for a fight. Liv Morgan pointed out that she's in a great mood because she's already qualified for Money in the Bank. She wanted to say that she'll gladly trade in her spot in the Money in the Bank match for a match for the Royal Women's Championship against Bianca. And then Carmella came out. Carmella ended up pointing out that Liv Morgan is the only one in the match who was not a former champion. Carmella ended up wanting the match reduced to a fatal 4-way. So Liv Morgan ended up threatening to give Carmella a couple more weeks off if she keeps running her mouth. So Alexa Bliss came out and she ended up asking if she should name drop the guy with the chin who helped Carmella win Money in the Bank. Of course, she is referring to James Ellsworth. You remember when James Ellsworth was with Carmella? So Alexa Bliss ended up saying that Carmella has never been successful on her own. Alexa Bliss ended up threatening to beat Carmella's face if she keeps talking about Liv Morgan. So then Bianca Belair ended up cooling things down, and that was pretty much basically how this segment ended. Overall, this segment was absolutely nauseating, fucking awful, and cringe. That's all this segment was. Oh, we get Becky Lynch coming out, and then Liv Morgan, Carmella, Alexa Bliss. Oh yeah, I want to have a shot at Bianca Belair for the Royal Women's Championship. That's all this segment was. And it was fucking atrocious. This is awful fucking television. And then we had the Fatal 5-Way match to determine who would face Bianca Belair for the Royal Women's Championship at Money in the Bank. Alexa Bliss, Asuka, Becky Lynch, Carmella, Liv Morgan. The match was okay, in my opinion. So Becky Lynch ended up going straight after Asuka. Both women ended up tumbling out to the floor. Liv Morgan and Alexa Bliss ended up taking down Carmella. Morgan delivered a sunset flip for a 2 count. And Alexa Bliss ended up reversing a whip into her own roll-up on Liv Morgan. And this whole point of the match, we had Alexa Bliss and Liv Morgan. They locked themselves in the cradle, and they're rolling around the ring. So they're rolling around the ring a couple of times. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Hell, even the ref couldn't even keep up with how many cradle rolls that Alexa Bliss and Liv Morgan were doing. So then Carmella ended up trying to take advantage, and Asuka ended up coming into the ring. Carmella ended up avoiding Asuka's strikes. Alexa Bliss ended up taking down Carmella. She ended up going for the cover, and Carmella ended up kicking out at 2. Carmella then rolled to the outside. Becky Lynch ended up coming back in. She ended up going up to the top. She delivered the leg drop from the second turnbuckle and missed. So Carmella ended up getting back in the ring. She rolled up Alexa Bliss, and Bliss ended up kicking out at 2. Alexa Bliss ended up firing up. Carmella ended up slipping out of a slam attempt by Alexa Bliss, and she pulled Alexa Bliss down by her hair. She ended up going for the cover, to which Bliss ended up kicking out at 2. Liv Morgan ended up coming into the ring. She pushed Carmella into the top turnbuckle. Liv Morgan ended up climbing up to the top turnbuckle, and Carmella ended up pushing her off. So Liv Morgan ended up crashing down onto Asuka and Alexa Bliss on the floor. As Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Becky Lynch and Alexa Bliss were in the ring. Becky Lynch ended up missing a splash in the corner, and she ended up hitting a back exploder, which sent Alexa Bliss out of the ring. Liv Morgan ended up coming back to the ring, and she ended up hitting a rising knee strike in the corner to Becky Lynch, and went for the missile drop kick. And she ended up going for the cover. Becky Lynch ended up kicking out at 2. So we had Becky Lynch end up covering with her feet on the ropes onto Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan ended up kicking out. Becky Lynch ended up climbing up to the top, and she ended up getting cut off, and Carmella ended up bringing her down with a hurricanrana. And she ended up going for the cover, to which Asuka ended up breaking up the pin. So later on, we had Asuka end up missing a strike on Alexa Bliss. Bliss ended up trying to take Asuka down, and Becky Lynch ended up interjecting. Liv Morgan ended up going for the Oblivion on Becky Lynch, but Becky ended up holding on to the second rope to block it. Becky Lynch then ended up hitting a manhandle slam on Liv Morgan. Asuka and Becky Lynch ended up fighting to the floor. Alexa Bliss went up to the top rope. Liv Morgan ended up getting her knees up because Alexa Bliss ended up hitting Twisted Bliss. So Liv Morgan ended up walking into a super kick delivered by Carmella. So Liv Morgan was laid out. Carmella ended up going for the cover. And there you go. Carmella ended up winning the match. So Carmella is getting a shot at Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's Championship at Money in the Bank. How fucking awful is that? Carmella, she hasn't been on TV in a while. She comes back, and then all of a sudden, she gets a shot at the Raw Women's Championship. Unbelievable. We all know now that Bianca Belair is going to retain. What a waste. I mean, it was an okay match, but Carmella winning after she hasn't even been on TV in months, and she comes back and wins the match, and now gets a shot at the World Women's Championship. Awful. Absolutely awful. God, this show, man. This fucking show. Then we went backstage. Becky was bitching at Adam Pearce, and then it faded to black because nobody wants to hear Becky fucking argue. So then, as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Becky Lynch was still bitching to Adam Pearce, and she was like, "What's Money in the Bank with big time Becks?" And then Adam Pearce ended up pointing out that she was scheduled for a Money in the Bank qualifying match against Asuka, and that the match will happen tonight. And so Becky was upset about that. She was like, "Oh, I already wrestled." So she was upset that she had to wrestle twice in one night. Well, don't feel bad, Becky, because Asuka had to wrestle twice in one night. So that was that. We had the match later on the night, which was the main event. And then we had Vince McMahon end up coming out. So Corey Graves was like, "What a surprise." So Vince ended up coming out. He got a positive response from the crowd. Why? Why was this crowd in Nebraska cheering Vince with the news that came out last week? I mean, we all know about the news. So we had Vince end up getting on the mic. He ended up saying that this is the 1,517th edition of Raw. And he ended up thanking the fans. Knowing deep down, he can't stand the fans. He can't stand us. So he ended up saying that 20 of the 30 years of Raw have been dominated by John Cena. He ended up saying that it just so happens he'll be back next Monday, which that will probably be the only highlight of Monday Night Raw next week. And that's going to set off John Cena versus Austin Theory for SummerSlam. So Vince ended up dropping the mic, and he ended up getting out of the ring. What a waste of a minute this was. This was all done for a rating, for them to pop a rating, just like when he came out on SmackDown on Friday. That was just for a ratings pop. So yeah, Vince has got to get those ratings up. What a waste of a minute it was, just to promote John Cena returning to Monday Night Raw next week, when we all knew that he was going to return. They advertised it. So then we had Riddle. Riddle ended up coming out, and he got on the mic. He ended up talking about Randy Orton possibly having his career ended by the bloodline, and how he made a promise he'd get vengeance for both of them. The same thing with Riddle coming out there. Oh, I'm doing this for my bro, Randy Orton. To which Randy Orton, he's going to be out for the rest of the year because of his back. He's going to have surgery. So Orton's going to be out for the rest of the year. So Riddle ended up saying that he nearly got it on SmackDown. But at the end of the day, the Tribal Chief, Roman Reigns, beat him. Riddle ended up saying that he let himself down. And he let all the fans down. And he also let his bro, Randy Orton, down. Riddle ended up going on to say that he's down, but he's not out. He ended up saying that he can't challenge Reigns for his championship anymore. But he can still win Money in the Bank. Riddle ended up saying that if he wins and cashes in on Reigns, he can end his reign of terror and get that sweet vengeance that he and Randy Orton want. Riddle ended up saying that he wants to smash Seth Rollins in the back with a ladder for what Rollins did to Cody. So Omos' music ended up playing because Riddle took on Omos. It was a Money in the Bank qualifying match. MVP got on the mic, and he ended up asking Riddle if he's been hanging out with Snoop Dogg and Wiz Khalifa, because only they have the top stealth stash that can divorce you from reality. MVP ended up saying that Riddle will get high tonight when Omos snatches him and slams him down. Riddle ended up saying that he's going to get high and his hand is raised after he hits Omos with an RKO. So again, with the weed jokes, we all know that Riddle likes to smoke that weed. So that was that. Same old from Riddle, saying, oh, this is for my bro Randy Orton. I let everyone down. I even let my bro Orton down. Same old from Riddle. And then we had the match, Omos versus Riddle, Money in the Bank qualifying match. This was awful. We all know that Omos is terrible in the ring. Do I even need to explain this match? So Riddle's ribs were taped up. We had Riddle end up going right after Omos, started to fire away with some kicks in the corner. Omos caught Riddle with a sidewalk slam. And then he ended up hitting a splash in the corner to Riddle. Seth Rollins was shown watching the match backstage. So Riddle started firing away with some punches. He ran right into a bear hug by Omos. Riddle started punching his way out of the bear hug, but Omos ended up grabbing him, put him back in the bear hug. Riddle started fighting out again. Omos grabbed Riddle by his throat. Riddle countered with a knee strike. Riddle ended up booting Omos, ended up hitting the floating bro. Riddle ended up setting up for the RKO, and Omos ended up overpowering him, ended up hitting the tree slam on Riddle. He ended up going for the cover, and there you go. Omos ended up winning the match, and so Omos is qualified for Money in the Bank. Post-match, Omos ended up hitting another tree slam on Riddle, and he posed. And then we had, Riddle just laid out in the ring. Seth Rollins ended up making his way out. Seth Rollins came out in a pink suit, looking like a pimp. So Rollins ended up laying out Riddle with a forearm. He tossed him out of the ring. Rollins got on the mic. He ended up saying that he doesn't share airspace with losers. So Rollins ended up calling Riddle the ultimate loser. Rollins then went on to say that he shouldn't be too hard on him because it didn't matter. Rollins went on to say that only one man has Roman's number, and you're looking at him. Rollins ended up saying that Reigns has been ducking him since the Royal Rumble. So Rollins ended up vowing to win Money in the Bank. Ended up saying that his cash-in will be bigger than his first one. So Rollins ended up getting cut off by Riddle, attacking him from behind. Rollins ended up taking Riddle back down, and he ended up hitting the stomp on Riddle, and then Rollins started laughing, with the and then his music ended up playing, and that was that. But Money in the Bank just got worse with Omos in the match. Watch WWE give Omos the Money in the Bank. I could definitely see WWE giving Omos the Money in the Bank win. And can you imagine? I hope WWE doesn't do this, because if they fucking do this, I am going to be fucking sick. I hope Omos will not be the one to cash in Money in the Bank on Roman Reigns and defeats him, and Omos becomes the undisputed WWE Universal Champion. I pray to God that does not happen, because that would be fucking awful and a waste of everything that WWE has done with Roman. Or I could sense Seth Rollins winning Money in the Bank. WWE gives Seth Rollins the win at Money in the Bank. Rollins cashed it in, and it'll be a whole WrestleMania 31 thing again, which a lot of people are predicting. This could be WrestleMania 31 all over again with Rollins cashing in the Money in the Bank. But that's one or two things that could happen. But like I said, I pray to God they don't give the Money in the Bank to Omos. But in the back of my mind, I know WWE is going to pull a shit like that. God, let's all pray that doesn't happen. Let's pray to the wrestling gods. So then we had Austin Theory. Austin Theory ended up making his way out. He was wearing his headset. So he was standing in the ring on the pedestal from the pose down last week on Raw. That awful fucking pose down with him and Bobby Lashley. So we got a video of the segment last week. Awful fucking segment, which was the main event of Monday Night Raw last week. Theory ended up saying that everyone wants to know what it's like to be a prodigy, or a chosen one, or the new face of the company. He ended up talking about him being the youngest United States champion in WWE history. Theory ended up saying that he proved last week that Bobby Lashley can't touch him. He ended up saying that he's better than Lashley has ever been. So Theory ended up saying that next week is the 20-year Cena celebration. But his time is up, and my time is now. So Theory ended up saying that he wants to show off some of the poses he didn't get to do last week. So the lights end up going down. Theory ended up rubbing some baby oil on himself, which I know probably Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard got a hard on in gorilla position. Seeing Theory rub the baby oil on him, and probably Vince was like, "Oh yeah, that's some good shit there." We all know that Vince and Bruce were having fun watching that in the back in Gorilla, with Theory rubbing the baby oil on him. So the fans were cheering. Theory ended up thinking it was for him, but Bobby Lashley snuck up on Theory from behind. Theory ended up picking up his phone to take a selfie, and then he realized that Bobby Lashley was standing behind him. Theory turned around. Lashley ended up spraying him with baby oil, which of course was water. You could tell it was water. The whole baby oil that Theory was rubbing himself was water. So he sprayed Theory with the baby oil, the water, and then Lashley speared Theory off of the pedestal, and Theory ended up rolling out to the floor. Lashley got on the mic, and he ended up demanding a match for the United States Championship. So Theory ended up seeing the selfie of Lashley behind him. It was on the screen, and he didn't look too happy about that. And so that was basically that. Overall, this was a waste. This was a waste of time. And then we had the Usos. The Usos ended up making their way out. And then as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Kevin Patrick ended up approaching Theory about Bobby Lashley's challenge. Theory ended up telling Kevin Patrick that Bobby Lashley deserves nothing. He ended up saying that he was in Adam Pearce's office and suggested an idea. He ended up saying that if Lashley wants a shot at the United States Championship, he must defeat 3 men in a gauntlet match. And if Lashley wins, he'll get a shot at the United States Championship against Theory at Money in the Bank. So that was that. And then we had the Usos. They had a mic in hand. Jey ended up saying that everyone knows who they are. Jimmy ended up saying that the Bloodline runs both shows. They run Monday Night Raw and they run SmackDown. Jey ended up saying that Roman will smash Brock Lesnar, just like he did to Riddle. So the Street Profits end up making their way out. Montez Ford ended up telling the Usos to enjoy their reign while they still can. And so then we had the match. We had Angelo Dawkins versus Jey Uso. And I'm like, how many times have we seen these guys go at it? Last week, it was Jimmy versus Montez Ford, and now we got this match this week. What a tag team division that WWE has, right? How great of a tag team division do they have? God. It's the same shit. So Jey Uso ended up backing Dawkins to the corner. Dawkins ended up reversing the whip, and he hit his twist and splash onto Jey Uso, and a big kick that sent Jey Uso to the apron. Dawkins ended up charging at Jey. Jey ended up pulling down the top rope to send Dawkins out to the floor, and Jey ended up following up with a suicide dive, and then clothesline Dawkins into the timekeeper's area. And as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Jey was still showing control of the match. Dawkins ended up fighting back with some punches. So yeah, Dawkins ended up running down Jey with a series of clotheslines. And Jey ended up delivering a super kick to Dawkins. Dawkins recovered. He ended up hitting a flying back elbow to Jey. He ended up going for the cover. Jey kicked out at 2. So we had Jey ended up firing up, ended up hitting a super kick to Dawkins. He climbed up to the top turnbuckle, leapt right into a powerbomb by Dawkins. So he ended up going for the cover. And there you go. Angelo Dawkins ended up winning the match. Overall, this match was just very meh. It's the same fucking shit. So are we gonna get Jey versus Montez Ford next week? I could definitely sense that happening. I said, what a tag team division that WWE has. How great is it? Awful. Absolutely awful. So then we got a shot of a hand strumming a guitar. And we see Ezekiel and Elias. You could tell that, it was split screen. You could tell that Ezekiel was wearing a fake beard and that they tied his hair back in a man bun. So that was pretty much that. They disguised Ezekiel as Elias, which we all know it's Elias. But Ezekiel ended up explaining how things have gone since he made his debut. Elias ended up saying that he's been out playing shows, but nothing compares to performing in front of the WWE Universe. Elias was happy to see Ezekiel living his dream. Ezekiel ended up saying that it means the world to him that Elias is here with him. Ezekiel ended up talking about being in the Money in the Bank ladder match, to which Elias ended up saying that he shouldn't get ahead of himself and just focus on what's in front of him. He wanted to say he's doing a great job and he ended up telling Ezekiel that he loves him. So both Elias and Ezekiel ended up exchanging a fist bump, and pretty much that was basically that. So he just gave Ezekiel a fake beard and tied his hair in a man bun, and they split screened it. So you had Ezekiel sitting on the left-hand side, and you had Elias sitting, on the right-hand side. So, but that was that. And then we had Elias in the ring, the Elias Concert. So Elias was in the ring. He was under the spotlight. He was playing his guitar. Elias, considering, it's Ezekiel disguised. So I'm saying that it's great to be in front of all the good people of Nebraska. He ended up thanking the fans for taking care of his little brother, and also reminds them that WWE stands for Walk with Elias. So Kevin Owens ended up interrupting. Owens ended up calling him a liar. And I'm saying that he may have fooled the folks in Nebraska, but he can't fool him because he's French-Canadian. Kevin Owens ended up saying that the video of Elias and Ezekiel didn't prove anything because he saw a movie where a dinosaur flew a helicopter last week. So Ezekiel ended up appearing on the screen. He ended up telling Kevin Owens to accept the truth. So that was probably a video that was shot earlier in the day, with Ezekiel there. So Elias ended up playing a song for Kevin Owens, which he ended up calling KO is a Liar. Kevin Owens ended up coming into the ring. He ended up grabbing the guitar away from Elias. He threw the guitar out of the ring. Elias ended up catching Kevin Owens with a jumping knee. He then picked up a guitar and smashed it over Kevin Owens' head. So Kevin Owens ended up crawling away, and pretty much that was that. Overall, this thing was awful. This whole segment was absolutely awful. Just cringe. This whole feud with Kevin Owens and Ezekiel needs to fucking end. With WWE, it's like they don't know how to end this feud. So they just keep continuing and continuing and continuing with it. Let's move on from this. So then we went backstage. Kevin Owens was stumbling after he got hit with the guitar. Kevin Patrick ended up coming up to Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens ended up saying it's not convinced Elias and Ezekiel are separate. Kevin Owens ended up explaining exactly how they did this. Kevin Owens ended up saying that next week he's challenging Ezekiel or Elias or their younger brother, which Kevin Owens was like, L-Rod? What the fuck is a L-Rod? So Kevin Owens ended up stopping mid-sentence, and he ended up noticing Ezekiel stand right in front of him, and that was basically that. Kevin Owens ended up losing it, and he goes, L-Rod! And I'm like, what the fuck is a L-Rod? Fucking terrible, man. Oh my god, the show was so fucking nauseating tonight. God, this is awful television. Money in the Bank is shaped up to be fucking awful. So then we had Bobby Lashley end up coming out for the Gauntlet match. So we had Bobby Lashley versus Chad Gable. And Chad Gable, he's good in the ring, but I haven't took Chad Gable seriously anymore after he started doing the fucking cringe with the a shush and a thank you. It just makes him look so fucking lame. It's not even funny. If you are like Chad Gable doing this, thank you and shush, you're living in a dream world. It's absolutely cringe when he's out there and is doing that. So Bobby Lashley took on Chad Gable first in this Gauntlet match. So Lashley ended up grabbing an armbar on Chad Gable. Gable ended up fighting to his feet. Lashley ended up grabbing a headlock and took Gable down to the mat. Gable ended up fighting up, but Lashley ended up taking him back down with a waist lock. Chad Gable ended up reveering briefly into his own armbar, and Lashley ended up quickly retaking the advantage of the match. Gable ended up managing to escape out of the armbar, ended up delivering a chop to Lashley. So Lashley ended up delivering a neck breaker and a shoulder block to Gable. Gable retreated to the ring apron, to which Lashley knocked him off of it. Gable ended up crashing into the front of the commentary table as Bobby Lashley ended up heading out of the ring. Lashley ended up poisoning up Chad Gable and ran him headfirst into the ring post. Gable ended up getting to the ring apron. Lashley ended up grabbing him and ended up bringing him in with a delayed vertical suplex. So Lashley ended up going for the spear. Gable reversed that into an ankle lock. So Lashley was able to roll out of the ankle lock and kick off Chad Gable. Gable ended up knocking down Lashley, climbed to the top turnbuckle, connected with a moonsault, and he ended up going for the cover, to which Lashley kicked out at 2. So in the end, Lashley ended up going for the hurt lock. Gable reversed it, but Lashley ended up getting him back into the hurt lock, and Chad Gable ended up tapping out. So there you go. Bobby Lashley ended up winning against Chad Gable. Otis then immediately ended up attacking Bobby Lashley. So now it was Lashley taking on Otis. So Otis ended up leaning on Bobby Lashley, ended up taking him to the floor. He ended up throwing Bobby Lashley into the ring post. Otis ended up getting back into the ring, but he ended up coming back to the outside, ended up running down Lashley with a running body attack and a splash on the floor. So as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Otis had grounded Bobby Lashley with a vice lock around Bobby Lashley's head. Lashley ended up fighting back to his feet, ended up trying a waist lock, but he couldn't lift Otis. Otis ended up firing back and delivered a lariat to Bobby Lashley. He ended up going for the cover, to which Lashley kicked out at 2. So in the end, Lashley ended up hitting the spear. He ended up covering Otis, but Chad Gable ended up diving in to break up the pin, and that caused a disqualification. So Bobby Lashley won by DQ. Gable and Otis ended up double teaming on Bobby Lashley, and they ended up laying him out. And then the last guy to come out and face Bobby Lashley was none other than Austin Theory. So Austin Theory ended up mounting Bobby Lashley, started stomping away on him. Theory ended up backing Lashley into the corner and connected with some more punches and kicks. Lashley ended up reversing the A-Town down and rolled up Austin Theory. And there you go. Bobby Lashley ended up winning the Gauntlet match. So Lashley will challenge Austin Theory for the United States Championship at Money in the Bank. But overall, this Gauntlet match was a waste of time. This Gauntlet match was not needed. But Gauntlet matches, like I said, it's a way of WWE saying, oh, we got nothing else planned for the show. So what do? Alright, so we got nothing planned. Let's do a Gauntlet match to fill some time. That's all it is. It's WWE Creative being lazy, and we all know how lazy they are. So it's just a way of them to put a Gauntlet match together when they got nothing else planned for the show. Gauntlet match was a waste of time. And then we had Bianca Belair. Bianca Belair was backstage, and she was asked if she surprised Carmella won. So Bianca ended up saying that yes and no. So she ended up running through Carmella's accolades, and then Carmella ended up attacking Bianca from behind, and pretty much that was that. And then we had MITB. Miz was out there. He ended up introducing his guest, who was AJ Styles. Miz ended up saying that Styles has been going through some issues. So Miz ended up running through every bad thing that Styles happened to go through since before WrestleMania. Miz ended up taking a shot at the University of Nebraska. And Styles ended up calling Miz naive. He ended up referring to Cornhusker country. Styles ended up mentioning, oh, Miz has tiny little popcorn balls. So we're still talking about balls on the show. Vince and Bruce, oh, they loved the word of balls. So they can't stop mentioning about it. I'm like, why do we have to know this? Do we really have to know that? So Miz ended up pointing to his crotch and ended up saying that this is not becoming a thing. Who is writing this shit? So Miz ended up saying that his balls are huge. Who the fuck wants to know about that? So the Miz ended up running through his resume, ended up plugging Miz and Mrs. It was a cheap plug for Miz and Mrs. So Miz ended up asking Styles how it feels to be a disappointment. Styles ended up saying that he's not playing his games. He ended up saying that his losses are on him, and he's been through adversity before. Styles ended up saying that he doesn't run his mouth when he's disrespected. So Styles ended up knocking Miz out. Ciampa ended up appearing, ended up knocking Styles out of the ring, and pretty much now is basically that. But who is writing this shit? Why we gotta hear, oh, my balls are huge? Like, who wants to know that? Oh, and then Styles mentioned, oh, Miz has tiny little popcorn balls. Who the fuck writes this shit? And why does this get approved? Why does Vince approve this? Oh, I guess, like I said, oh, Vince and Bruce back there, oh, they probably love seeing Theory rubbing baby oil on him, which is water. Oh, and I bet they like them saying, oh, Miz has tiny little popcorn balls. So cringe. So fucking cringe. This is awful. This show sucks. And then we had AJ Styles versus Ciampa. Like I could care. Styles ended up taking down Ciampa with a clothesline. Followed up with a backbreaker. Went for the cover. Ciampa ended up kicking out. Ciampa ended up fighting back. Ended up chopping Styles against the ropes. Styles responded with a drop kick. And Ciampa retreated out to the floor, to which the Miz was still out there. So we had Styles end up fighting to his feet later on in the match. And he ended up delivering a sliding forearm to Ciampa. He followed up with a splash in the corner. He brought Ciampa out with a Ushigoroshi. And he ended up going for the cover. Ciampa ended up kicking out at 2. So Styles ended up getting to the ring apron. Ended up hitting the phenomenal forearm on Ciampa. And he ended up getting the win. Styles ended up winning the match. Post-match, Miz ended up trying to attack Styles. He ended up getting a Pele kick. Miz ended up getting a Pele kick from Styles. And then Styles ended up hitting the Styles Clash on the Miz. And that was basically that. Ciampa is getting buried. And it's sad. It is absolutely sad. Ciampa is talented. This guy was one of the biggest heels in NXT that WWE has seen. You know, his whole feud with Gargano down there in NXT. It was one of the best feuds that WWE has ever produced. So, how do we go from Ciampa being one of the biggest heels in the company to him getting buried? Jeez. And then we had Kevin Patrick. Kevin Patrick ended up interviewing Veer Mahaan. Veer Mahaan ended up telling Kevin Patrick what he did to Rey Mysterio is just the beginning. He ended up saying that WWE has never seen hunger like his before. He ended up saying that he can't be stopped. So that was pretty much that. That was what Veer had to say. And then we had Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch ended up coming out for her Money in the Bank qualifying match against Asuka. And then as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, they said that Kevin Owens will face either Elias, Ezekiel, or Elrod next week on Monday Night Raw. And then we had Asuka end up making her way out. Becky Lynch ended up running down the aisle to attack Asuka. Becky Lynch ended up whipping Asuka into the side of the ring. Asuka fought her off. And she ended up getting in the ring. And then the match ended up beginning, which was the main event, Asuka versus Becky Lynch. Money in the Bank qualifying match. We've seen these women go at it before. Nothing new here. Asuka ended up blocking on an armbar on Becky, to which Becky ended up escaping. Asuka ended up taking down Becky Lynch with a shoulder tackle. She ended up trying to go for the Asuka lock, but Becky ended up pulling her out of the ring, out to the floor. Becky ended up going outside, slammed Asuka's head on the ring apron. Becky ended up rolling Asuka in the ring. Asuka ended up catching her with some kicks. Asuka then ended up hitting a run and hip attack while Becky Lynch was in the ropes, and Becky ended up spilling to the floor. Becky ended up rolling Asuka into the ring, climbed to the top turnbuckle. Asuka ended up cutting Becky off, ended up going up to get Becky, to which Becky ended up fighting Asuka off. And we had Becky end up missing a missile drop kick, to which Asuka ended up hitting the code breaker on Becky. She ended up going for the cover, to which Becky ended up kicking out at 2. As Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, both Becky and Asuka were down. They started trading strikes in the middle of the ring. Asuka tried to get a roll up on Becky, in which Becky ended up kicking out at 2. And Becky ended up laying out a run clothesline to Asuka. Asuka got back up. She ended up hitting a run and hip attack in the corner. Started fighting away with some more strikes to Becky. Asuka delivered a run and hip attack on Becky. She ended up going for the cover, to which Becky ended up kicking out at 2. Asuka ended up trying to go for the Asuka lock, to which Becky ended up reversing it into her own version of the Asuka lock. Asuka ended up escaping, ended up putting Becky in the ankle lock. Becky ended up trying to roll out of that, and Asuka wouldn't let go of the ankle lock. Becky ended up rolling Asuka into the corner to break up the ankle lock, and Becky ended up going for the cover, to which Asuka kicked out too. So at the end of the match, we had both women. They would trade strikes in the middle of the ring, and a manhandle slam by Becky was reversed into a roll-up by Asuka, and then Becky ended up reversing it into her own. Asuka ended up hitting a huge kick to Becky's head, and she ended up going for the cover. And there you go. Asuka ended up winning the match, so Asuka is now qualified for Money in the Bank. And post-match, we've seen Becky going crazy, started throwing stuff off the commentary table. She went to the ring apron, and she just slid down. It looked like she was about to cry. And that was how Monday Night Raw went off the air. Overall, Monday Night Raw, absolutely fucking terrible show. This show was absolutely bad. It was nauseating. It was a waste of 3 hours. God, this show fucking sucks ass. God awful. This is awful, awful television. But anyways, that's it for the Monday Night Raw review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all later.